Guys, it's been quite some time since we've turned the wrench on my just horrendously destroyed Dodge Demon. I'm not sure that anybody noticed, but it's been nearly 5 months. Earlier this year, on a trip to the salvage auction, I ran across this 2018 Dodge Demon. For reasons that I still don't understand, I thought to myself, gotta have it. I'm speechless. I ended up buying it for just under $20,000 and immediately realized I had made a huge mistake. At this point, I was already committed, so I decided to buy a couple more Hellcats to use as donor cars and build the world's first manual Demon. I managed to put together a set of factory wheels and tires, piece together a suspension, and take it for its first drive. And that's where we left off. The truth is, I couldn't resist putting off the project until we were up against a ridiculous deadline just for entertainment value. That was believable, right?
Not at all.
No? The truth is really quite simple. We're waiting on a ton of parts. Fortunately though, now we have 99.9% of the parts we need, some of which we had to buy brand new from the dealer, some of which were so complicated to source it ended up being easier just to buy a complete car, and some we're not going to need till later in the series, but I just couldn't resist showing them off. So where do we start?
Let's open this thing.
The new parts?
Yeah.
All right. What's up with that shirt?
I don't want to talk about it yet.
Months ago, I placed a huge order with Dodge, and everything except one part came in. Unfortunately, the hood is on indefinite back order, but I suppose if there's a part we can wait on till later, it's the hood. One thing we definitely can't wait on, this brand new quarter panel. I had originally planned to put a used quarter panel on it, but I had such a tough time finding a donor car with a clean, wide-body driver rear quarter that I just had to bite the bullet and order it new from Dodge. And I do have to say, it looks significantly better than the one we pulled off the car. It has been some time since I made this order, so I can't recall exactly everything that's on the pallets. One thing that's pretty obvious though, this is the bezel for that massive hole in the Demon hood. Ah yes, the world's fanciest air filter, strictly because it has a Demon logo on it.
That's awesome.
It is pretty sick, right? It's the exact same filter as the Redeye. It just has a Demon logo on it, costs 3 times the price. One brand new throttle body to go on our brand new supercharger that you're probably not going to see until next episode. I remember these now. Way back when we touched this thing last, I stuck Hellcat springs on the front just to get the car rolling. The Demon springs, which are something like 20-30% softer, were obviously destroyed in the front. The factory rear springs on this car survived, so I just couldn't resist ordering a set of OEM Demon springs for the front. Obviously, as many of you guys have let me know in the comments, this car is going to be so unsafe when it's done that I'll never let a child ride in it. So I ordered a rear seat delete, as it should have came with from the factory. That is sick. Check that out. The last piece of this particular Dodge order, another part to the hood which we do not have. Now that we've sufficiently made a mess here, I suppose before we talk about the Redeye that we bought, or how high horse performance turned that massive pile of junk that was the Demon engine into a beautiful 1,000 horsepower capable long block, I suppose it would be proper to do some work. My plan for this car by the end of the episode is to have all the welded on body panels done. I want to have a roof on it, I want to have the rear quarter done, the new A-pillars, and I'm hoping to have the doors and fenders bolted on too. I want this to look as complete as it can be, except for all the obvious issues we're dealing with here. With the exception of glass, I'm hoping that after today, it's just a matter of bolting parts to it. And on the topic of glass, we don't have any for obvious reasons. My plan is to take every bit of glass from this silver Hellcat and use it as a donor for the Demon. While we don't need the glass right away, in fact, it's going to be a pain sitting around the shop, we're also going to take the roof and A-pillars off this car to stick on the Demon, which means we pretty much have to pull this glass right now. I bought this kit that should allow us to do exactly that. The only question now is if I can manage to do my part and not break this stuff.
You're supposed to use safety glasses for this?
I got the safety squints ready if I need them, don't worry. You're definitely supposed to be using a ratchet for this, but it seems like the glue on this quarter window, you can just turn it by hand. It's not that solid. I think we're all the way through. We did use some assistance that is definitely not how this kit was drawn up, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. It ain't much, but I guess it's progress. And now we get to do it 3 more times. I have to give it up for that tool. That thing works. Never removed the windshield in my life. Somehow we did it without breaking it. At least so far. Got it? There's a bit of a learning curve, you know, a couple cuts, a couple bruises, but this thing came out clean. Somehow the weather strip even came out intact. This thing is crazy strong as well. I did have a couple beginner mistakes here. I somehow let it run under the A-pillar metal and it just started slicing through the steel. And this isn't that fire weekend trash on the Demon, this is the real stuff. Don't even ask me why I decided to do the hard one first, the one that's most prone to breaking, but hey, I guess it all worked out. Now, as a reward, we get to do it all over on the rear. All right, it's official. I cannot say enough good stuff about this kit. We're definitely not gonna pretend it was cheap. It was $900, but the last time I paid somebody to get my glass off, specifically out of my 911 Turbo, it was $150 a piece. $150, $300, each quarter glass would have been another $150. Now, I'm no expert, but I think the tool just paid for itself. And while it might feel like we just accomplished something, truthfully, all this did was give us access to do a day's worth of drilling and cutting. But before we do that, I suppose it's time to let you guys know why we bought this entire Hellcat Redeye instead of just ordering the parts we need.
I like this color a lot.
I do too, typically. I'm generally a really big fan of this color, but this car is bad. I don't know who was bodyworking this car, but it is far and away one of the worst that I've seen. Even the paint quality is just absolutely horrendous. Now, when I bought this car at auction, I thought it was going to be kind of nice, and truthfully, it doesn't really matter for our purposes, but I was kind of shocked to see somebody screw up a Redeye this bad already. We left off a few months ago desperately needing an electric power steering donor car. We need to strip out every single inch of wiring from this and stick it in that. I preferably wanted to find one that wasn't crashed in the front so we could also snatch the electric power steering rack out of it. The rack in the Demon technically works, but the tie rods are all jacked up and it wasn't a fire, so I don't necessarily want to trust this to send us down the track at 150 miles an hour. This Redeye does give us the power steering rack we need, at least as far as I can tell so far with the car on the ground. Who knows what we'll find when we get it in there, because after all, the car is a complete bucket of shit. It's also going to give us the wiring harnesses we needed. I was hoping that we could find one with a good driver quarter panel as well, but it proved to be an impossible task. Not only are we taking the chassis harness, but we're going to take the engine harness. We're taking the ECU. Everything that makes this car run, all the security parts, we're putting right into the Demon.
But can we hear the wow first?
Well, not yet. Unfortunately, somebody stole the keys out of this car when it was at the auction lot. So we're gonna have to head over to the Dodge dealership and have a key programmed for it. It's way too expensive, but I do want to confirm everything works before we rip this car apart and start putting parts into the Demon. But before we get to messing with the Redeye, before we talk about that sick engine, it's about that time. And by about that time, I mean time to wear through a lot of drill bits. Let me just go ahead and apologize in advance for the noise you're gonna have to deal with here. We have a new unintentional shop pet. It's a bird that flew in like 3 hours ago and hasn't left. We've got most of the tedious work done. All the spot welds are drilled out. Most of this adhesive in there is broken. Even down to the front of the A-pillars, they're pretty well loose. It might sound odd, but this is where the hard work begins. We have to be so careful with this roof. It's so thin. On the front and rear bows that support the roof, there's all this foam in here that's stuck to the roof pretty good. We have to find a way to break that so when we pull the roof up, it doesn't just buckle like a piece of paper. Thinking this is our best shot. This is that tool from that glass kit we used the other day. Oh, wow. Okay, that worked way better than expected. You know, I'm not gonna say I had high hopes, but now what's gonna happen here, I'll hammer this in a little bit and the entire roof's gonna pop off. Like I said, I've done this once or twice. Twice is exactly how many times I've done this. That is flimsy as shit. Now that we're done with the roof, we have to cut the A-pillars off. Front section's done, the whole door frame's done. Now we just have to go under where the roof was, hit those guys, slice it off right about there, and we should be good to go. That came off really clean. I'm honestly shocked the roof and the A-pillars seem to come off without an issue. It's almost like I know what I'm doing with this stuff, which to be clear, I do not. What do you think, Fernando?
We should just glue that, you know.
Well, I don't know about that. We'll worry about the install in just a little bit. For now, I'm glad we just managed to get all this exterior sheet metal stuff off in one piece. Now, the only thing left to do to this chassis before we can dispose of it is pull this guy, and that guy. Overall, very successful day, even though with the burden here, it feels like we're filming for one of those safari documentaries instead of an automotive YouTube channel, but hey. Majestic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Hellcat in its natural habitat. I wish I could say I was joking, but until I stopped seeing like 20 stolen Hellcats every time I go to the salvage auction, I kind of can't. Now that we destroyed that Hellcat, got all the parts we need and dumped it outside, it's finally time to do a little bit of bragging about this. Truly, it's almost impossible to believe that this is the same engine that came out of that car months ago. It looks brand new. Massive, massive shout out to the guys at High Horse Performance. They build some of the baddest Mopars in the game. The guys at HHP spec'd the perfect motor for this build and then sent it out to BES, a top-notch machine shop, to have it all done. We did Carrillo rods, CP pistons, Manley springs and retainers, an ATI dampener, and then we replaced a bunch of the fire damaged parts. I think all parties involved, by their own admission, were a little shocked when they got a pallet full of burnt Hellcat demon parts. But nonetheless, they did their thing and brought this engine back from the dead. It looks so good.
How do you think this engine is gonna sound?
Just like that, right?
You're gonna be one of those guys that goes to the street and they're like, wang, 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 all the time.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do. This has came a long way. ARP head studs down there. This thing's ready to go and ready to make some power. Unfortunately, however, the car very clearly is not ready to go, but I'm hoping after the next couple days we'll be a lot closer. And that's because our friends at the Street Bandito YouTube channel are coming to lend a hand. He's done a ton of work for us here on the channel, but I think this is gonna be his toughest project yet. I'm not gonna say you look like you regret it already, but did you know exactly what you were getting into when you came down here today?
No, it looks extra ridiculous with all the parts and stuff hanging off.
Yeah, but I've seen what you can do in cars that actually matter, the stuff that has to look nice. You gotta be able to do something with this. I'm gonna let you explain what you're about to do because I'm sure they're gonna wanna hear some kind of sound technical advice in this, which I surely can't give them.
Technical. Yeah, so we're gonna be cutting probably the bottom section of this like dog leg of the quarter panel off, and then replacing that, as well as you have an A-pillar we're replacing, and then finally putting a new roof on this thing.
That's the part I'm worried about. My biggest question is this roof gonna line up? Is this buckled so much? Is there something going on here that we're gonna need to do something shady, which I'm not above? It's been quite some time. It actually looks like a car again. I mean, it hasn't looked this way since I've had it, at least.
It's a quarter. It's all.
It is. It is a quarter. Not only that, we have some roof supports. It's looking good.
Yeah, so we actually started with the roof supports to make sure that the width of, like, since the roof was so warped.
Explains the ratchet straps.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We don't really have a frame machine here, so we just...
We do. It's sitting out in the parking lot right there. It's a forklift, yes. But we call it a frame machine.
Made sure that was all set, and then a couple test fits of the quarter.
It looks legitimate. It looks good.
This actually has like a little, you know, ½ inch of metal left over here, and you're supposed to roll it over. I just hit it with a hammer and did a slow roll with it, but there's actually a tool we have at the shop. I just forgot to bring it. But
a hammer is good enough for this car. I think we'd all agree on that. I guess that's about going to do it for day one here. I got it. It looked like a disaster. Then I took it apart and it looked like even more of a disaster. So to have a quarter panel, what, 75% of the way on? Yeah. I'm thrilled. Either way, couldn't ask for more on day one. We've done a lot to this car, but for some reason, today's the first day that it feels like this thing's actually coming together. Back for day number 2, and I think we have a fairly solid plan. Obviously, over here on the driver's side, there's no getting around installing this entire A-pillar section. We already cut that one off. It's gone. We have to do it. But you have a different idea for the passenger side, and I'm liking where you're going with this.
Just to keep the patina, you know.
Patina.
What we're gonna do is a quick little trick. We're ground the tip of a bolt. We'll grind a very shallow groove in here, and then we'll tack these there. We'll be able to pull this dent out, kind of like PDR style, but from the outside.
PDR, okay. If that does indeed work out and we don't have to stick that entire A-pillar section on, I'm gonna be a big fan because I don't know that I've told you guys this yet. We're leaving this car burned. I want to clear coat over all the burned parts. I want to leave this side of the car pretty much the way it is. We're also going to try to epoxy the mirror back on. I don't know how well that's going to work. This obviously isn't going to move. In fact, half the mirror is missing, but we'll worry about that later. If it doesn't work out, we'll stick the purple one on it down the road. If they can manage to pull that out, we'll leave it rusty, we'll clear it over. It's going to look flawless? I almost said flawless. That's definitely not the word for it. It's gonna look something. I don't know what we should call it. But either way, I suppose it's time to get started. I'm excited to see how that turns out. Excited to get an A-pillar on a roof and have ourselves something that resembles a car. Now's the scary part. Fernando, after all that work taking this thing out, if we crack it now, I'm gonna be pissed. Stop making noises, all right? We might not crack it, but we might find out this is where the chassis is just 45 degrees bent. The windshield's never gonna fit. But on my side, it looks all right. Don't look at that part up there yet. We gotta adjust that a little. Yeah. It's weird seeing glass in this thing for the first time, isn't it?
Really weird.
So on this side, we're good. As you might imagine, it's the original A-pillar. Not a lot of heat over here. We weren't worried about this one. But on the other side over here, we have a little bit of a problem. Just a little bit. So we're gonna have to bring, and let me be clear, by we, I mean Tim is gonna have to bring in that A-pillar just a little bit.
Can we say she ain't going nowhere?
Not yet. Oh no, she would definitely go somewhere as it stands right now. I think they're gonna be able to take that space up. They seem confident. I guess we'll see. That's way tighter. This weather strip's kind of old, kind of crusty. It's locked in position from being in a really nice, tight, new car. Obviously, tight and new, this car is not. Now I guess we get to see if the roof fits, and hopefully it's not nearly as off as the windshield. And if this fits, we should be pretty much home free. I don't think this thing liked the temperature. It's like 100 degrees in the shop today. Don't ask me how. I suppose you'd be the better person to ask, but somehow, some way, everything's kind of lined up in this car.
Yeah, I think with like sliding this over, this is not really directly on top of this A-pillar. It's a little bit shifted over to tighten it up. I think there's just so much warping in this A-pillar from here to here. This is as good as it's gonna get, but it's pretty good actually.
It came out easy the first time, the first 3 times. I don't know, maybe we just leave it at this point. We'll figure this out later. We have more important stuff to worry about. I distinctly remember a few months ago at this point, you and I, Fernando, sat out here and we debated, was this a car or was it a shell?
It's a shell.
It's a car.
No, it doesn't have an engine.
It's
still a
now
shell.
a car.
It's still a shell.
It's not a shell.
No engine, no transmission, no glass, just a steering wheel. It's still a shell.
It has a roof and it has a quarter panel. It's practically an entire running car. And yes, I realize that may be a stretch, guys, but look at this thing. After the way this car looked before, it's almost hard to believe that all the body gaps line up. We were able to get the roof moldings to sit in there well. And while I don't think the video conveyed exactly how well we were able to get the windshield to fit, it's almost flawless. Massive shout out to our guys in Industry Garage, Street Bandito on YouTube. Go show their channel some love. Check out some of the crazy stuff they do and tell them thanks for helping us out with the Demon. And while you guys are hard at work doing that, I'm gonna see if we can get ourselves a functional pair of doors on this car. Now on the topic of doors, the driver's side, it's gonna be pretty simple, though there are a few changes we have to make. The door shell itself, the mirror housing, the window motor, and the glass, of course, because it's tinted and I want it to match the rest of the glass we took out of the Hellcat, we're keeping. But as for the electronics, the wiring harness and the speaker setup, we're gonna have to swap that over from the Redeye. Of course, all that stuff I just mentioned is gonna be easy enough to do with the door on the car when we're wiring it later down the road, so why not hang the door and make it look just a little more complete. Yeah, that's about right. Put it in the comments. How many of you guys noticed me putting on the door hinge backwards the first time? It works. Imagine that. I presume that this isn't going to line up well at all, and it certainly does not. So it's touching the rear quarter panel right there. On the bottom, the gap is about right, but the door's sitting out a couple millimeters. I'm gonna have to assume that this is gonna be an ongoing struggle with this car, just sliding stuff around, making it work, adjusting stuff so it looks at least halfway decent. We got the door lined up, the gaps are perfect, it shuts perfect, I'm super happy with it. And fortunately, we didn't really have to do anything too sketchy. Smooth, ain't it?
Yeah, especially with all the shims.
You know, it'd be crazy if I just snapped this car into another one. I can't even come get parts off this car without getting angry all over again. Look at this garbage. Could use that front bumper if they didn't screw it up.
This car definitely went through some abuse.
Some abuse?
Yeah.
This car was bought just to be abused. This has to be the worst 40-some thousand mile Redeye I've ever seen.
You ever thought that you would be a Mopar guy?
I'm not a Mopar guy, I'm a guy with Mopars, all right? There's a difference. Okay. Oh, God. If you've ever considered doing this, please stop working on cars. Boom. At least this Redeye was good for something. So we're getting ready to pull down the other Redeye. I know Fernando's not excited about it, and you'll understand why in a second. But I'm thinking that I might just take the red fender flare off it and throw it on this purple fender. I think it'll look kind of cool until we get it painted. And I suppose it's less stuff to paint anyway.
Oh, doesn't have brake.
It's all good. It's all good, all right?
I can't explain. On my defense, I was the only one here with a clean record driving a forklift. This is a big mistake.
Well, let's let them judge for themselves. Roll the video. I'm in the other unit cleaning up, and I get a call from Fernando. Hey, come over. I f***ed up.
I forget about this car. So I was turning and I hit it.
Oh, right there?
Yes.
I got to back Fernando up a little bit. He is far and away the best forklift driver here. I do find it a little odd, though, that the one collision he's had in the forklift just happens to be on a car we're rebuilding. Yeah, so this Redeye that I bought as a donor for the Demon, but then decided not to use because it was so clean. It's not really clean anymore. Look, obviously there was a little mishap. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. This project's a little bit of a ways out anyway, and by a little bit, I mean it's really far out. We gotta wrap the Demon first, but I did want to get it down for a couple reasons. One, I want the fender flare. Two, I want to see what's good on this bumper. And three, a giveaway.
This is actually missing the concrete bolt.
The blue screws, yes, this did have the blue screw delete package. It is a shame. On to the giveaway, this Redeye badge here. I don't need it, it's coming off this fender. We have another one over there on that purple fender. All you gotta do to win it is go down in the comments and tell us about your funniest screw up at work. Easy enough.
Is that the right tool for it?
Probably not, but we are talking about screw ups here, so what's the worst that could happen? I break the emblem. There we go. Hope that old screw up at your job place pays off. The more I look at these bumpers, seeing everything we have on this one, the one off the silver car, and the purple piece of junk, I'm thinking we can get really close to a complete bumper. Just like I drew it up. What a color combo. That looks amazing. Top notch, purple and red.
Hey, at least you're gonna have 4 red fender flares. That's a progress.
It's something. I am gonna need you guys to ignore the spacers we have working right now. It's advanced body shop stuff I don't expect everybody to understand. When you unbolt the front of the fender, it slides into place exactly where it should be. So I think it's possible that upper aprons just tweaked a little bit. The whole car's tweaked. We've known it all along. We're gonna adapt, improvise, overcome, whatever that one guy said. When you unbolt the front, it lines up pretty good. So we're gonna have to figure that out. I'm not gonna stress over it too much for now. It's gonna have to come back apart. We don't have a hood at the moment, and we don't have a front bumper yet. But I think it's about time we try to combine this bumper, and that bumper, and see if we can make one. As far as the bumpers go, the bumper shell itself, the silver one, is pretty much the only one I feel comfortable using. The purple bumper shell we've already established, absolute trash. The red one, well, we don't really have to explain that. Don't get me wrong, the silver one's by no means perfect, but I think it's our best shot if we don't want to have to go and buy a new bumper. Here's the rest of the plan I cooked up, and follow closely because it gets complicated. The upper grill in this, obviously it's also trash, but the lower grills, they're in really nice shape. So we're gonna salvage the lower grills out of the red bumper along with the wide body panels in the front lip and stick it on the silver bumper. As for the upper grill, the bezel goes around the outside. On the purple bumper, it looks to be okay, but the honeycomb in the center, it's destroyed. However, on the silver one, that piece looks to be intact. Unless I'm overlooking something, I think we're gonna have everything we need to get the silver bumper and wide body spec and have it ready to go on the car. We are gonna have to do some modification to it. It doesn't have any of the necessary holes or slits in the side of it to attach the wide body panels. And after I dug a little further into the purple bumper, it looks like that's exactly what they tried to do. They just did a horrendous job of it. I did also find a little more damage on the silver bumper we're using this morning. This is what the side of it's supposed to look like, and this is what the passenger side looks like. It's certainly not gonna look perfect, but I'm hoping once we cut this wide body panel in, it's gonna cover it up where it doesn't look that bad. Not bad, right?
Looks functional.
Functional is a good word for it. This is somewhere in between perfection and that purple bumper. Unfortunately, cutting a narrow body bumper, it's just not as good as I want it. On the back side of these wide body arches, one clip on each side is broken. Where that's broken, you can see a gap there. I hate that. We're gonna have to get replacement clips, and hopefully that'll tighten it up a little bit. On the passenger side, it's a little more noticeable. This gap on the front lip is gonna clear right up once we mount it. Everything else looks pretty good. The bumper's not perfect by any means. You saw that piece of wood through it. There's some dents there. There's a dent there, a scuff. We're gonna have to have it worked a little bit at the body shop, but compared to what we have, compared to any of those 3 bumpers that are now just giant trash pile, I'm gonna consider this a major win. This is an impressive pile of Mopar plastic. Terrible. All going in the trash right after this. We can't consider this done, of course, though, until we mount it, which means for the first time in months, we have to flip this headlight around. At least 50 you called me out on having this thing upside down. There was a reason. This upper bar is missing half the headlight mount. We need to put the one from the purple car on there, but I'm hoping we can mount it enough to get a look at it. For the zip ties, please. I assure you, there will be a time this car is not assembled with zip ties. It's just not going to be today. That goes up and over. For not being bolted on, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I know this bumper's just lightly hung. There's 2 clips up top, 2 loosely threaded on nuts on the outside, and somehow it still fits pretty good. The fender bolt holes pull forward a little bit. Once we tighten that down, that's gonna draw up nice. This gap here, once there's any sort of bolt in it whatsoever, that should draw up nice. The top fits fine, even though we have to take off this entire crash bar at some point and replace it with the purple one once we get that car apart. And this side, it fits pretty perfectly except for the bottom of this fender, which is bent pretty good. And I didn't notice it until just now, so we're gonna have to do something about that to make sure this fender flare sits on there flush. I mentioned a few gripes I had with the bumper earlier. The biggest one, I think, is this side marker. It doesn't fit real well. I think it's just a byproduct of modifying a narrow body bumper. Now that we've made some really nice progress on it, it almost resembles a car again, even though it was a car all along, as Fernando will attest to. This is the perfect spot to call this first episode back, but we're not wasting any time. Tomorrow, we have an appointment to take the Redeye over to the Dodge dealership, get the keys programmed, hopefully start it, and then rip it apart the same day. Once we have the Redeye yanked apart and we clean up this interior for the final time, that means we can lay all our harnesses, and I don't see why we can't start putting some interior in it.
It's not gonna be too long until you have the shell in the row, right?
It's a car. At this point, it's a car.
It's still shell.
It's not a shell. Are you even looking at it?
Yes, that's why I'm saying that.
It's a car. It has a front bumper. It has 1.5 headlights, fenders, a roof, a quarter. It's a car.
That completes the shell.
These guys wouldn't have waited 5 months to see an episode about a shell. I don't have the logic to back it up, but this is a car. I'll see you guys back here soon. I just realized something.
What?
You're probably the last person we should have let touch a quarter panel. You definitely should use safety glasses with this. I don't know if you're supposed to turn it off. Where did that fucking rubber band go?
It's a detail product there?
Oh, you really want that rag that bad?
Of course.
You really just freaked out over one dirty microfiber that's laying under the seat.
I'm the only one who can clear. I'm the only one who can clear. I'm the only one who washes cars around here, so...
What about if that bird is actually a camera and they just take anymore?
Like a drone?
Yeah, just because we got Bodywork Mopars, you know.
Do you think somebody's like trying to release this video before I do? Like one of those people in the comments got so tired of waiting for a video, they just sent the bird drone in here and like, we're gonna film the video ourselves.
Yeah.
We've knocked out almost all of this. That bird, I literally can't think. God damn, this is such a dumb idea. There's spores everywhere. Oh, son of a
Everything for YouTube.
stupid Hellcats. God. I have to imagine this is going to be an ongoing thing with this car, but adjusting, sliding stuff around, and making it fit the best we can as I struggle to get a wrench out of it. Okay, let me